So on the other channel we have 997 videos, but on this one, this is the, I guess this is the behind the scenes of the Chimera's next episode and a review of the last one. The Grave Robbers from Space. I just went over the 90-minute movie. It's 90 minutes. It's long, but it's extremely watchable. And went right through it in one sitting, and yeah, it's the whole mini-series, thinking up to that point in which we got to Grave Robbers from Space. The original Planet of the Fallen Ones Kal Kat story consultant marks cards, but he wasn't involved. Loosely based on the other on the various blogs of Jason Colavito, loosely based, and this too was loosely based on the Hutton Pulitzer rant. We don't want to get the actual guys pissed off, so I would say this is actually, it won't really, that the characters are very fair in it. So on either side, but clearly the guy is lawsuit happy, so let's not piss him off. The real guy. So in the parody version, he's called Crazy Hair, even though the actual guy has very little hair. Actually, it looks like an older version of Colavito, actually, Vita Cola, actually. So yeah, an older version of him. So they sort of mixed him in with two other people and gave him sort of some of the lines from the other people that were commenting. So yeah, you could even say that the lines aren't his, really. To make a story out of it, you couldn't take this blog that lasted for weeks and turn it into a story unless you did that. It was well over, in the storybook, it was well over 100 pages. In this version, it was split up as a 60-page and a 50-page, as the blog, as the raw blog data, and things were moved around. Even in post-production, things were moving around. So yeah, we didn't. Kal Kat and didn't. You changed some of the dialogue during filming the movie. So, this isn't what someone would say, so we had to change it a little. The basic crux of the story, and I liked how it was done. It was sort of a weird Western merry-go-round, spin-around sort of. They weren't really spinning, but the way that I shot it, we shot it, cowpoke, after shot it, it was done to look like a dig in an episode of Ancient Aliens, actually less Ancient Aliens and more like the Treasure Force show, which they were getting this information from. The Treasure Force show, a little bit American Earth, shot like in that format with a lot of close-ups of them characters. A lot of the goofy stuff, revealing the treasure at the end in a very, the joke being that when they reveal what it is at the end, it's the old David Copperfield, David Blaine trope, Geraldo trope as well. He used to have a show, that sensationalized show. It kind of does still to this day on some other channel, but these sensational early reality TV guys would do these shows where they would spend 90 minutes to uncover some really redundant, boring thing at the end. So the joke here is that they find a grave and they uncover it, and it's not the right one. It's just Riker's grave, which hinted at in the beginning of the story when they went back in time they went into the distant future and they found his grave. It's the wrong grave. Thus leading into part 2, which is the sword fakery. That's this one, which is a slightly longer script than that one was. It's 60 pages. It's mainly the dialogue chunks that are doing this. I took some out of the other ones. So yeah. These stories are meant to be spoof parodies. We don't expect any trolls from the Ancient Aliens or the Fringe group to even comment, and if they do comment negatively, we'll just not include that. Yeah, because unlike the Colavito blog years ago in 2016 that this is loosely based on, in the Andy White version as well, in which he also had Pulitzer on his site because he's one of the people that called the parks people and told them, look, these guys are going to do this. Actually, what he actually did is not in addition to that, he called Prometheus Entertainment, the actual network that was giving Scott. So it had nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with us. We did not call the Parks and Rec people in Minnesota. No. Yeah, nothing to do with it. But they already knew. They knew that there was a blog and an audio podcast, and that they were going to go behind the studio's back and go to this gravesite. This is after the sword thing, the funky sword. The sword thing we'll get into this one. That was more of an eBay sword scandal. There was a bunch of fake swords being sold on eBay, basically, and this character, we'll call him Prize Hunter, threatened to sue them too, the people on eBay and the other ones and everyone else, because he's an entrepreneur. Threatened to sue them for some reason as well, because he had a fake sword and he was trying to sell it. That's the gist of that one. So that's a little less than a grave robber, but fake sword. Okay. Yeah. So he that didn't work either. So this guy's lawsuit happy. He's a rich lawsuit happy guy. A right winger goes out and thought apparently that the Colavito blog, the people that were posting there, were responsible for. Either responsible for the actions of him or vice versa, or responsible for the actions of the plot of the show, or had connections to the show and were able to, get rat on them, basically. But that's not what happened. What happened is Prometheus Entertainment is about money, the network that owns History Channel at the time, and they're all, we will lose money if you guys go under our radar. Don't, that's what they were saying. We will lose money if it's not us. We're not them. They will lose money if they go and do this thing. It would make them look bad. It would hurt their image, make them look bad if these guys went off on their own and dug up some mastodon bones in Minnesota and said they were giant humans. It would just throw everything off. It would be bad. The studio stopped them. Not the bloggers, not Colavito's group. They got paranoid and thought it was the bloggers' group. They should have, thought about it for a half second and not posted for 3 weeks. They should have just thought, okay, well, clearly the company watched our audio podcast, which everybody watched their audio podcast. That's what people were watching. Hundreds of people watched that audio podcast. Listened to it, I should say. They listened to the audio podcast. They also, that was one of the contentions in there, is they had a story where they were all, how did you watch an audio podcast? But there was a video version. They put up a video version a little later explaining what they were going to do in the audio version. So there was a video. There was also a show, bits of a show that was not aired, that ended up online. So they were able to watch it. So they were able to watch what they were going to do, and when they did it, eventually they did do it. And it was a boring Geraldo stunt. But they had a disclaimer on their footage that said, this is not endorsed by Prometheus Entertainment. We're doing this on our own. They're going to do it on their own. Because they didn't want to get in trouble and sued by an actual company that could actually sue them. And then he wouldn't have a show anymore. Scott Walter didn't want to lose his show. The other guy was Scott Walter. He didn't want to lose his show. So, and even though he ended up doing it anyway as the result of stuff like this, for several years he didn't have a show because of stuff like this that he's doing. He overstepped his bounds. He was supposed to just stay within the confines of the show and not do crazy stuff on the off season. He's supposed to say, okay, we paid you to dress up like Indiana Jones and run around and look at rocks. We only paid you to look at our rocks, not someone else's. Because we got permits to look at our rocks. And we don't have permits for you to go around looking for pretending you're a real treasure hunter. Other people's rocks. No, you can't do that. That was the thing. They were going to lose money. That's all it was. They were going to lose money. So the go-between. We've mentioned this before. That crazy story. It would make a great Netflix news thing. It wouldn't air on Netflix though, because I don't think Netflix would go for it. But other people have done it. Yeah, there's some other bloggers have done an Ancient Aliens expose. Some of them way better than anything this would be. This is more of a spoof, a parody, a lighthearted look at it sort of thing. It's not meant to defame or slander anybody, and it doesn't. All names were changed. Everybody's in a different situation. They may be quoting them a little bit, but it's changed. It's reminiscent of the critical vitriol story, that there's a lot of repetition, as if repeating several bullshitty comments somehow makes them like it makes it important. In a similar way to the Mein Kampf, the Nazi, the Hitler, who was out of a book where one of his lines was he's a bad guy. And out of one of his lines, one of his lines was, "If you tell a lie long enough, people will believe it." So they just went by that standard and said, "We're gonna tell this lie enough times so they believe it." It's not that the story's a lie; it's that what they were gonna do and then lie about it was a lie. That was the lie. Yeah, they were gonna do it. They were gonna go exhume this grave, knowing full well that it was the Geraldo thing all along. Now I didn't explain the Geraldo thing. The Geraldo thing is when you set up a scenario. It came from the safe story. There was an Al Capone safe and a Titanic safe, and and also the Copperfield thing was like is a magician from the 90s, 80s and 90s, and of what Blaine and the others copied, which they would do setups for unbelievable stunts, and then the stunt would look fake and not very convincing. The Geraldo safe one and the other safe one are similar in that they would have, like, they didn't check first. So in the Titanic safe one, they checked to make sure that there was something in there, but it was still muddy and gross and there was nothing there to see. Same thing with the Al Capone safe, something muddy and gross and nothing in there. In the case of Copperfield years ago, it's kind of the same idea. He was going to walk through the Wall of China, or he was going to do the Statue of Liberty, make it disappear. He didn't. He did a very kiddie-ish Halloween thing, put up a giant sheet, and showed his shadow disappearing behind a Klieg light. That was the whole thing, his shadow disappearing behind a Klieg light. Back in the day, my friends and I would do, sci-fi and stuff like that, and wrote about it and everything. And all kinds of stuff like that. Wrote movie reviews and things like that back before the internet and the early internet. We're like they could have done that way better. It's like why didn't for 90 minutes of airtime, they could have set it up. They could have found a break in the Wall of China, and they could have disguised it to make it look like it wasn't there in broad daylight. And they could have said, okay, we're going to make this look like there isn't a break there. We're going to make him pass right through the wall, even though there's a door. It's a hatch. There's got to be a hatch in that wall somewhere. And then, we just won't tell the audience that's watching it there's a hatch there. And we can go right through the hatch. A lot easier than putting up a very kiddie-ish Halloween sheet and having him go, "Ooh, look, I'm standing behind the sheet. Ooh, see my shadow. Ah." It's like, that's and Blaine, I think he's the one that did the floating thing, the floating disguise of the TV screen and moved the set wire around, He moved the set under the people so they weren't seeing the same mountain. At least, it's kind of a little overdone in that case. All he had to do was turn the set around. But he had to go through all the trouble of putting it on treads and moving it. Just turn it around. Put just a dozen people in there. They'd figure it out, but yeah. And the other one. As for Geraldo's safe thing, why didn't they have cameras put something in there that looks real. Fake it. Like the bad guys are doing. It was like, they didn't think of that. So they were going to find bones. And, it's now what they call a trope. The Geraldo safe, French trope. So this is there too. Swordgate is not confused with Swordgate Palace. Swordgate is a kitschy reference to Watergate. And the hard right likes to throw gate on everything. Watergate, Clinton Gate, Watergate, when in fact they're the ones that do the most of that kind of thing. So what is it, Trump Gate? No, they wouldn't say that. So yeah, when you put stuff down the toilet, that's Trump Gate. But yeah, you have yeah, it's just okay. So the fake sword on the eBay sword. You can probably figure out who Crazy Hair is from the story. Price Hunter in the story. You can probably figure out who that actually is. But yeah, it's not libel and slander if they actually did it. Yeah, it's not libel and slander if they were going to do it. And if it's put on a blog, it's their opinion. It's not slander. It's not libelous. It didn't defame them to do that. It freaked them out because they were rich entrepreneurs and that they could go on somebody's blog site and complain to them. It didn't work because the other guy is, and he's all, what? And he knew him, white, and he was like, wait a minute, he knew this guy, so he was like, wait a minute, this guy's full of it. He's not going to be able to do any of that stuff. It was like, so yeah, then they thought he was behind it. But yeah, it had nothing to do with it. And no dog in this race, no pony in the race, whatever they say. No, it's another colloquialism. It's just interesting that it went on for a long time. Here is the here is the rendering, a version of it here that because I went over the episode and there was very little to just one or two little things in there. Cowpoke is very thorough. I see. It's weird that my other stages of it that's not personality disorder or anything. I know it's me, right? That the different version aspects of it kind of a slightly different job with Cowpoke and Kelly are always real thorough in that terms of what's going on. The Optimus Prime guy and the Cheetor guy are usually on point. I let the other ones do it too. What's funny is I'm not particularly good. It's just weird. Even though they're all acting different parts I'm playing in the story. And nothing to do with the Sword Fakery is the next one, and this is I guess a behind the scenes. But it's technically the next one, so put this on the making of for the next one. It took 12 days. It was the last one was there on the 12th. Now it's the 22nd, so 11 days. This one will take probably about 11 days too. It's interesting that we can do a 90-minute movie in 11 days. That's pretty impressive for the YouTubes. Although we have like 3 channels going at once. The reviews channel and the Star Trek Chimera channel has about a little over 130 videos. I think that's what it is. Not as many. The other one almost has the main review channel has almost 1,000 videos. We'll have to do something special for the thousands, but I think we're going to reach the thousands on that channel long before that. It's 3 reviews away from that. But we'll think of something. Possibly that convention. If it's still going to happen, we could go to that. Possibly. That'll be something to do with that. And if we do, it's probably where we'll do the Thompson and Carey gag. Because, or at least do some footage and make it look like it later or something. I don't know what we'll do over there. And they might completely kick us out. So, maybe not. With the conventions nowadays, I suppose with the COVID and all that, with permissions and stuff. Of course, with a cell phone camera, you get a little less permissions because it's a cell phone camera. It's not, so you're not like annoying people by running around taking selfies. But that's pretty much it. I don't need to ramble on about other stuff on this particular tape. Yeah, it's interesting. Andy White is mentioned. I don't know him either, but he looks a little like an older Colavito as well, sort of a hybrid. Yeah, there was a couple of other issues that were brought up during the story, and that were not issues, of course, because the go-to of stalking and trolling on the internet, the go-to is they have a different opinion, so I'm going to threaten to sue them. That's what they always say. They're going to be sued. I'm going to get my lawyer. I doubt this guy had his lawyer go to the Colavito at all. I doubt that happened. The lawyer said, no, you don't have a case. You were saying you were going to do this on the blog. There's no contact. They claimed there was contact. At no point did Colavito ever say he talked to the lawyer, because he probably didn't, because there was no lawyer. He was lying, making it up. At no point, and then in desperation, the prize hunter character in the story, and the real character that is based on loosely, he in desperation he went to the next step, and he said stuff like, "Oh, we must be stalking him." No, what? It is ironically, because I know how irony works. He was actually stalking Colavito by showing up at his site every morning and commenting all throughout the day about, have you committed a crime? Did you commit a crime? Oh, where did you get that information? Oh, and even though they said, no, it was off your podcast, he didn't get it. So he kept going, there was no crime. There kind of was, because they did actually go to the real site. There was, actually. Fortunately, it was just like bison bones or something. Wasn't people, fortunately. But yeah, they would have said it was if it was, or they would have found a different one and then a bait switch, like at the end of the story. So yeah, the go-to is the stalk. Then the stalker then accuses them of stalking, which is ridiculous. And then it goes to the go-to of the other person must be obsessed, and sexually obsessed, pervertedly obsessed with the other character, not them, but the other character. That's the go-to. And then it probably escalated beyond that. I think it does, actually, in this story. They accuse everyone of stalking them and their progeny and whatnot, and their children or their wives or something. And it's like, nobody's stalking anybody. That's the go-to about internet trolls. They sue them. They threaten to sue them. That's not going to happen over difference of opinion. When it doesn't work, you're automatically a meanie or a bully or something, and then you're automatically a perv. You're automatically doing untoward things to them and stalking them, and then they build up and escalate into this bizarre, like, none of which is. It gets to the point in which the person that's being harassed on their blog is actually being stalked by said bad guy, and at that point, the other person, Colavito, could sue them, ironically. And then say, like, okay, I'd like to sue you because it's defamation. So he's not that famous, a famous public figure, so he could sue the other public figure and win, because it would be like, well, he's harassing a random blogger website. That's how the law works. Of course, recently in 2022, there was an end of a law case where they determined two celebrities, a minor celebrity and a major celebrity, kind of like this. A rapper sued a minor rapper over the minor rapper's comments, and somehow this higher up rapper, was more famous rapper, won the case, even though that's unprecedented for her to win the case, which is why it was all of that, because the other rapper was not as famous. The other rapper was jealous and making up stuff. But it's like, yeah, and the things she was saying was not really technically defamatory, because the things she accused other rappers have done. So how is that defamation? I mean, they're not saying the rapper lady did those things, but it's typical of that society to do that or be accused of doing that. As they say in Hollywood, it's who you know, who you blow with, and who you blow. That's what they say in Hollywood. think I stole that from somewhere. Possibly Mr. Story. Who said it as a joke? Yeah. Um, but it's true. There's a truism to that. In order to get into Hollywood, some people have to sleep with the boss to get into Hollywood. Not saying he did. Not saying that. Saying sometimes you want to get that movie deal, that gross Harvey Weinstein guy. You got to sleep with that guy. Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah. Have some dignity. But yeah. So she could have taken the case as an honest sort of, all right, I didn't know these things you weren't actually doing. But yeah, okay, she could have just apologized. That would have been the end of the case, would have been settled at court. But apparently she kept going on and on about the other rapper. And yeah, so they said, okay, yeah, you win the defamation lawsuit. You were defamed. Okay, that's different. But I think in the case of this, since this ever had been adjudicated to court 6 years ago, it couldn't be now. Statute of limitations has ended. It was 2016. That in the case of this case would be thrown out of court. But I was able to peruse through the Legal Eagles website and whatnot, that a case like this would be thrown out. That they would say a blogger is not responsible for the comments other people blog on a blog. Blogger's not responsible for the comments other people make on their blog. And ergo, you cannot sue somebody for the comments on the blog. So, yeah, if I had a blog and it was doing... It's like if somebody says something, which makes a certain amount of sense. Because if you have, say, a YouTube channel and you have a harasser on the YouTube channel publishing, like, disparaging comments and then turning around and saying, I'm going to sue you because you cut my comments out. That wouldn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Or, yeah. And the go-to is, oh, they're a weirdo or something. Like no, nobody was, yeah. And the other thing is they couldn't sue for is that the actual audio podcast, which was available years ago, does indeed say that they are going to exhume a grave. Yeah, it's in the podcast. So if there was any lawyer, they wouldn't look at the blog at all. They would look at the podcast. They would look at the evidence. The evidence, People's Exhibit A is the podcast. They would ignore the blog. So all those weeks and weeks of this guy harassing this guy, they would just say, okay, here's the evidence. People's Exhibit A, right here, is there a podcast? What did it say? Transcripted your podcast. It says you're going to go exhume a grave. Without permission from the authorities, the other people, without permission from Prometheus Entertainment, which owns the other guy, your friend there. Scott Waltz owns you. They own him. Okay, so yeah, that's the legal department of the TV station is going to call you up and go like, don't do that. Yeah, if you won't have a show. We can replace you. It's rather easy. And they're like, okay. That's what happened. That's totally what happened. Yeah. So. And then they got him back, so I guess he agreed to not hang out with the guy anymore. but yeah, it's an interesting, interesting enough story to do a 90-minute blog rant thing, a live action version of the blog rant on it. So certainly, yeah, they couldn't sue him. They had no way to sue those two guys who were going to rob a grave. No, it would be like if a bunch of like robbers conspired to rob something and then said, we put it on our podcast, and then somebody talked about it on their podcast. You couldn't sue them there either because they were conspiring to do something illegal. So how is that actionable? It's not. You can't do it that way. This is yeah, I know it's been a long time since I had copyright law class. Media law class, but yeah, even from there, yeah, not a lawyer, but I had a media law class. Got an okay grade. I passed. Wasn't that good? It was very hard though. A lot of legalese. Journalists. I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of funny that at one point the guy gripes about news media and stuff in there. You might think, did Kal Kat add that because he was a journalism major? At one point, I was journalism, and first it was English, and then it was journalism. So I had 2 degrees. I have 2 degrees, from San Jose State, and yeah. So yeah, was that line about the guy where the guy says, where he says, "Oh, I don't like it that you have two sources that came in and said that the information is accurate or not." No, I didn't like that. It's like, that's what a journalist does. That line was actually, I did add that's what a journalist does, but that line about the two sources was in there, and they said it, but they didn't say it quite like that. As a editor, trained editor, says, "Well, let's add the line in there where he says that's what a journalist does," because that kind of, yeah, that'll cement the idea. So it's not overly preachy this time. It wasn't overly preachy. It wasn't about like whether different events of the Bible were right or not. It was more, this time was about just this weird blog that this guy was on about for 90 minutes of their lives, spread out over 90 days or something, whatever. It was a long time. It was one of the longest rants on any one given blog. He was right about it bringing traffic to him. I don't think anybody would even really know about the Colavito blog at this point if they hadn't read that, a little bit of that from somewhere. It did bring traffic to him. That's right, but not for the right reasons. It brought the trolls over to him, some of which Colavito was not taken down. No, I don't run a blog like that. It's too much of a hassle, but if it did, I would not put the trolls on the site. Yeah, that's just why the stuff that I do have on Google doesn't have any comments, really, because I closed them. I don't want the people commenting on the comments. It doesn't add traffic to it. It's not a good thing to have trolls on there. And unlike a schoolyard or school situation or whatever, where not only facts matter, but decorum and universe, whatever, that matters also, where, unlike in a schoolyard where you can't ignore bullies that are harassing you because they'll just keep doing it, you stop them somehow with an authority figure of some sort. Not saying fight them, stop them somehow. On the internet, you can stop them. You can be the authority. You can stop them. You can just not accept their comments. Yeah, just set their comments too. I'm not going to accept the comments. If somebody comes in and makes up a bizarre, like a long-winded speech about how you're just wrong, and goes with a lawsuit, and then the pervy thing, and then several other things, you can just block them and not print the comment. Ooh, the comment's gone. They can't do anything about that. They'll go away. If they, yeah, Colavito let him stay there. I guess he was amused by it. Let him comment for weeks, and then boiled that down to two stories in this epic here, and that is pretty impressive. But just the gist of it. There's a little bit of repetition from the other story in the sequel, but it is meant to be a two-parter, so yeah, it's fine. There's a lovely line in here. It says, "Proven technique." Oh, you mean the mastery of the double standard? Yeah, the characters are loosely based on the Chimera ones from last year. The Strange World characters, slightly different, and I guess I'm going to go on a little while longer just because it's rendering. I don't just this is behind the scenes more than anything, I guess. But it is talking about the last episode, so I would have thought of it. We have a it's interesting that the backgrounds of some of the characters are different because the alien planet brain that's running the planet is giving them information to act as the actors in the story. So I don't think that Tendi is actually married to a blacksmith, just a man that's black. But the person she's playing, Chica, and the person that she's playing in the story, she is allegedly married to a blacksmith. And she is apparently a copyright lawyer. And Meral is apparently too, some kind of lawyer. and it would appear that Shadow's character, the actor that he is playing, which is very meta, is some sort of ex-TV producer and script writer and script editor, script doctor, similar to early Kal Kat. and that he is that he has you know but early yes. Never got to script doctor form though. Just yeah, helped out later on stuff. School only really. That school magazines and stuff. Oh yeah. Did have writing contest stuff, but anyway, so the the yeah, he's a Brad Boimler appears to be some sort of archaeologist, but so is as a character, and also so is, which kind of matches with his character. And Aster is kind of also, but didn't have as many lines. Yeah, Prize Hunter and Koloth and Cyrano are playing different assets and facets of this Pulitzer fellow and Scott Walter in a third party that is not mentioned directly. I'm assuming that the Koloth character is supposed to be Walter, I guess. Sometimes, but sometimes it's the other guy. Sometimes it's Critical Vitriol. It's not clear which, because it gave some of the lines to both of them. So it's not clear which one's which. They wouldn't be able to single themselves out in a crowd. They'd be like, oh, I don't know which one this guy's playing. They keep calling him Michael as well, which goes back to the original story. Even though that's not the guy's name. Of course it isn't. Nope. Yeah. So, but what's funny is he keeps calling the other people out, but calling the wrong ones out because he's not sure in his mind who they are. So he'll say like Muriel Paris, and somebody will say that's Molly. It's Molly. That's the wrong person. Brad Boimler when it was Rutherford. Yeah, partly to cover himself up, but yeah, that was in the script like that. What Cowpoke was doing, that'd be pretty funny. It is a funny story. It is funny. This next one is the sword one, which I don't think anybody's done anything massive about recently. I looked it up just recently at the sword thing. Nobody's done a 60-page. It's going to amount to another probably 70-minute story on the fake swords of the internet. Although other people have done other fake sword stories, including an excellent one or two of them. There's an excellent channel on sword and cosplay collecting called Shadiversity. Of a guy that looks like a young version of Shadow Dancer, and he's called Shadiversity, a young version of Gatov on there. It's not, but he just looks like him, acts like him a little bit, and it's a younger version. So I think the main guy would be the actual guy. He's the same age as Patrick, but he's Larry. So yeah, he's younger. I think Shadiversity's younger than me. And he's like the Australian version of the Gatov clan over there. And he was doing a mall sword one. That was funny. Yeah, fake swords. There's plenty of those out there. The one that was on the TV show was clearly fake. And the eBay sword, they were showing different versions of other swords from a museum to try and sell this fake sword. And when some people got the fake sword, they realized they'd been had. And they tried to go and sue this entrepreneur fellow because he was one of them selling the fake sword. You see. Yes. If you want to guess who that is, it's the guy that claims that he invented the QR code. What he actually invented was something called a Q-Cat. It was a device for scanning barcodes. He didn't invent the barcode. If you want to look up the guy that loosely inspired the whole thing, probably shouldn't. Yeah. I have no connection to him at all, and there's no reason to do that. But that's loosely what he is, and because his name sounds like cat, I'll look it up. But yeah, it's not in any way actionable. It's just a silly website thing. So yeah. Anyway, so that is behind the scenes of this episode. Yeah, you can't technically sue for blog comments on especially a spoof, as I wish this is a spoof of that story. Because if it was just straight up, it wouldn't be fun. But yeah, it's a spoof. So it's fine. Anyway, so that's it.